Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
So, we've got The Umbrella Academy, Season 2, Episode 6, A Light Supper. Which, great episode title, considering.
It was just a light one.
It didn't last very long.
No, not at all.
I'd say. Overall, how'd you feel about the episode?
Good. It was weird. The pacing was weird, probably for the first half.
I felt the first half was slow.
Yeah, it was slower than it has been, and we're getting to that point in the season where it starts to get real, they're putting in all of these scenes that feel,
tie in.
Yeah, that feel necessary, that they need to cover, that they need to, and it's not just always the most extravagant shit, but it was definitely a little slower than the other episodes, but I kind of felt it coming. We were on a roll.
Oh, dude, it was all gas for
It was all gas.
I mean, 3, 4, 5. It was non-stop there.
Yeah.
But this one, it was kind of nice to get a breather. And I mean, and that dinner scene was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was.
I loved it. I mean, there were a couple really great scenes in this. And, I mean, was there even a single fight? I don't think there was a single.
No. I mean, there's a couple torture scenes.
Yeah. Pretty mild.
Dude got his. I don't even actually know what they did.
Yo, I didn't want to take a good enough look
Yeah,
there at the end, so I didn't. But it looked like he had something poked through his eye, and he also got his teeth pulled.
Yeah, his mouth was in the mix, and then his nose was. I don't know.
We'll get to it later, but shall we get into this episode breakdown?
Yes.
So we open up on Allison dropping into Dallas in 1961. We've kind of gotten these catch-ups for everybody, and I guess we hadn't gotten a fuller version of Allison's, but this one was important for what happens later in the episode, especially.
Yeah.
I really dug it. When she's walking through the street, she approaches that diner where the guy immediately tells her, get the fuck out, whites only, and then she's getting badgered by a bunch of racist fucks on the street, and she clocks one of them. she knocks the shit out of one of them, and after that she has to run. So she's running through, and she stumbles upon the salon where they take her in and they protect her from Whitey. And next we see her, work in the salon. I was like, makes sense. I mean, kind of similar to Vanya. First person she saw, she stuck around.
Yeah.
And if you got dropped in the 1960s, you'd probably do a similar thing.
The explanation was a little easy. I feel like they're just oh, she just runs into the first place she could find, which happens to be a black barbershop, where they're like, oh, yeah, fuck you, white people. You can't do that.
Yeah, she got lucky, but I appreciate it. I do appreciate the circumstance. And we see Raymond come into the salon while she's working there, and this is where Allison meets him for the first time, and I think that's kind of sweet. All their their relationship is built in that fucking salon. Yeah. And they make eyes at each other, and you're like, oh, you know what's up. And then on their way out, Raymond looks at his friend, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna. And his friend's like, do you, brother?
He said, hey, that's all you, my man. All you.
And so he stays back and he talks to Allison one-on-one, and he's like, so what's your name? And she's like, all scratchy voiced because this is when her throat was freshly cut. Allison. And he's like, so, Allison.
Dinner?
And that's just it. And she's like, all right, fuck it.
And she's like, hey, say no more. Literally, say no more. We're going. They didn't say anything else. They just left.
Sorry, I had to move the mic a little bit.
The best embodiment of what is really when people say no more and then continue saying things. She's like, wait.
I thought we were done talking.
That's how you end the conversation. Say no more. We say no more.
Them's the rules. It's in the name. we next see Five standing on Lila's throat, fresh off their fight at the end of last episode. And he tells, "You took advantage of my simple brother."
My simpleton brother. Which, in that moment, you think, Diego is kind of
Diego is, and it shines through in this episode big time. And there's an episode later, there's a part in this episode later which just broke my heart for Diego. Like I was like, fuck. But other than that, he was quite a dumbass.
Yeah.
And I love Five and the handlers back and forth. I'm not I haven't been overwhelmingly compelled by her character through the first season, but so far in season 2, the mystery shrouding her has been a lot more interesting, and I really enjoy her rapport with Five. And
I still feel like that they're representing this other arc in the story that's just like not generally as good. Yet? Well, not evident, and because of its non-evidence, it's not as good. You're just like, why? They feel so important, but why?
Kind of the way we probably should have felt about the White Walkers in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
By the end.
But what's weird about that, though, is like, well, I guess they kind of did a similar thing because Umbrella Academy starts with the apocalypse, right?
Season 2 did.
Or season 1 started with the apocalypse too, right?
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
So you always know that they are like the thing that kind of inaugurates the story. That's why the White Walkers are so important. Like you're like that very first scene of Game of Thrones. You're like, what the fuck? You're like zombies in medieval. Who even thought of this?
This is fucking glorious. I love it.
I love it. I swear. Yeah, but this one just like the whole. What do they call it? The collection agency or some shit?
I can never remember the name of it.
Never remember.
The Bureau.
So,
some shit like
ambiguous institutional name. Insert here.
Yeah.
Basically, they always seem to be like having like the last say or being like of the utmost importance, and you're just kind of like, well,
the handler is
right.
is like throwing a big fuck you at them though. Like she's trying
to take it over though,
yeah.
But that's only because she like lost her spot or whatever, and she feels like they did her wrong, which is fine or whatever. But now she's just cultivating like a personal vendetta against this organization, which means that herself is the important part of this. Which I'm like.
It's just not as compelling at that point.
It's just not as compelling. There's no foundation.
But yeah, that is the basis of this conversation with her and Five, where she tells him she wants the board of the Bureau, insert ambiguous government name here.
Yeah.
And she wants the board assassinated, and Five is the most talented assassin that the Bureau has ever produced. I'm just going to refer to them as the Bureau because fuck it. And the offer here is she's giving him an opportunity to go back to 2019 without any apocalypse. No apocalyptical effect.
Apocalyptical effect.
It's like you get to travel through time and you'll do it safely.
I would not believe that motherfucker.
I wouldn't either. The handler's done nothing to prove to you she's saying anything true.
Not a thing.
But I can kind of get with Five being like, all right, I believe you because it is out of a personal. It's not altruistic. She's doing it because it'll help her. Mm-hmm. She takes this bitch over. But the fact that she's even gunning for that kind of power means she can't be trusted.
Yeah. Yeah. As smooth as she was with the jazz metaphor, I was like, "Oh yeah, she's lying."
Oh, bro,
she's
that jazz
lying.
metaphor was fucking fire. I was like, I've never been a huge fan of anything you say.
Anything you say, but I was just like, wait a second.
Like at the beginning of the conversation, she just randomly, and I remember thinking like, why'd she just do that? She just went, and I was like, okay, that was random. I was like, she's kind of feeling herself. She's like, all right, I'm gonna get into the groove here, and then she's like, but once I take over. Jazz, and I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, God, that was so cool.
And she was like, so let's riff, and I was like, you tempted me.
He ultimately decides to think about it, and we next cut to Luther, Diego, and Vanya discussing going to a light supper with their dad.
God, fucking
Luther, man. He's rough. There's a part later in this episode that was the last straw for me. I was done after this point. I was just like, you know what? This is it. Luther's lame. And I'm
arguably had a worse part after that.
He did. He did have a worse part after that. But like, I mean, that part was actually kind of like, Allison points it out as a little bit redeeming later. And I'm like, okay, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah,
and that's
fair.
But, Because
God, man, you just got to be the word. That's so awkward about it every time.
so awkward about fucking everything, and ultimately this conversation leads to them explaining to Vanya how fucking terrible their father was to her about locking her away and making her take pills and suppressing her powers and stuff like that. And Vanya's reaction is, Jesus, this guy. Well, I have to meet him.
I have to meet him.
True. And I like Diego's assessment of this situation. He's like, you know what? Fuck all this number shit. No, there's no more number 1, no number 2 bullshit. From now on, it's Team 0.
And then you go, oh, Diego.
And then you go, fucking Diego, you're so stupid. You really are a simpleton. Just because that's such a 14-year-old ass name to come up with.
Oh, yeah. We're Team 0. No, man. Like, Jesus Christ. You're the Umbrella Academy.
Like,
Come
you
on.
already had that name. And I guess, like, your father gave you that name, so maybe he was trying to reclaim it or something. But
Diego's
Team
just not
Zero's
the
not the
brightest,
move.
not the brightest bulb in the pack.
yeah, definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer. We cut to Klaus and Ben. And they're discussing whether or not he should tell his cult that the world is going to end. He's like, I should just tell them.
I should just tell them.
And then he's like, well, you know how cults get. And Ben's like, you know how cults get when the end of the world's at play. And Klaus is like, well, I'll make sure there's no Kool-Aid in the house. And I was like,
Kool-Aid.
Have you ever seen that meme of Captain America where it's like all the SHIELD agents holding him back, and he's like, get the fuck off me, and then it zooms in on his face, and he's like, I have to tell them I understood that reference.
Get the fuck off.
That's what that part made me feel.
Yeah.
And this ultimately leads to a conversation about how Klaus has been pretty terrible to this cult. He's like, you've misled them incredibly. All you've done is quote song lyrics and called them scripture and sold them this ideal. And like, he even had this girl give up on a full ride scholarship and just to follow him around the country. He's like, oh yeah, the Dutch one with the lazy eye. And Ben's like, no,
no. So you are fucking up people's lives.
And also during all this, he's doing yoga in a diaper.
Yeah.
And not real yoga. He's just like doing a bunch of random poses.
Stretching, kind of.
Like he did that thing which is a yoga pose, but he put his feet above his head, like laid on his shoulders. This guy. Ultimately, he goes out and greets his cult, and this is where he decides, you know what, I'm gonna be straight up with him. He starts to speak. He goes, "Hi, my name is Klaus. I'm an alcohol. Wrong kind of meeting." I was like, fuck yeah. I mean, just a perfect character. And he tells them everything. He's like, I'm a fraud. I'm going to tell you how it is. All this shit is bullshit. He's like, they quote something back to him. He's like, it's from Staying Alive, but I can't remember the exact lyric that he quoted. And he's like, no, that's not me. That's by disco legend Gloria Gaynor. And they're like, who's that? And he's like, you don't know yet, but you will. And
they're all just like, oh, okay.
But all of them are like, I'm a fraud.
I'm a fraud.
I'm a fraud. And they're all just so sold on this man that they can't
they're just
see
like,
him being
that
honest.
is the ultimate transcendental point of knowledge, is to acknowledge yourself as a fraud so that you can then
be a fraud.
Make right on your wrongs. And then he's like, it's not at all what I said.
Like, he's grabbing them by the face. He's like, no.
Yeah.
he's like, and like, what's funny is like, you get it. You get where they're coming from. They've been following this dude for years. Obviously they worship this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's giving them these lessons even when they're not there. And they're just like, you're so wise, man.
You're so wise.
I fucking love you, man. And he ultimately is like, well, what the fuck can you do? And he's still their cult leader.
Yeah.
I love that. That's what this culminated in.
Yeah.
I hope that's the end of it. I hope there's no more addressing of the cult or anything. It's just like, now they're just his cult. Like, there's no more. There's nothing else we can do about it. And next we cut to Allison, who has told Ray everything. I was just expecting the I heard a rumor stuff. I wasn't expecting the whole I'm from the future. I was adopted by a billionaire. Like, you still could have pulled off the whole I was adopted thing because of the White brothers and stuff, but the future, I was impressed with her honesty there. About damn time. And Ray's like, fucking prove it. And we discussed this. This was going to be difficult to prove.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, all right, fine. So they go to a store where she makes Whitey let them try stuff on. And they walk out that bitch with all the clothes. All the clothes. And I was like, fuck yeah. I love that little montage of them trying on all the shit in front of them and stuff. And they leave that place, and Ray's like, why don't you do this all the time?
What do you, like, what everything is for free. It's all for free.
It's like, we never have to do shit again. And he got her all hype, and she storms to the diner that we saw her land at the beginning of the episode. And we talked about this, too, how if she uses her powers, power corrupts.
Toxic
Absolute
shit.
power corrupts absolutely. You know, and
toxic shit just starts to happen.
She walks in there, and I respect her being like, serve us coffee. Like, fuck yeah. Get. She goes, I heard a rumor that you shut your damn mouth. This man couldn't talk.
Yeah.
Could not open his mouth the rest of the scene. And she's like, pour me some hot coffee. Black. Which I like. That was a nice little touch there.
Yeah.
Coffee. Black. And he's pouring the coffee, and she goes, more. And this man is just burning the fuck out of his hand, and his mouth is shut, so you hear the muffled, like, and Ray's like, yo,
calm down, what you doing?
And he snaps her out of it, and she was like gone. She was like, she like had to fully, visibly reset.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. This introduced an aspect of the story that I hadn't anticipated, but I would like to see, because overall it would make Allison more compelling for me, is her being more of the root of the issues. Mm-hmm. Like, apocalyptically, I mean. Yeah. Like, the shit that causes shit to go down, if somehow Allison is a big part of that.
Just in her general recklessness, you mean?
Potentially, but there's but like that's what's cool. That's what was so weird about the scene, though, is like, was it she just got lost in the moment, or was it like, did she completely dissociate? Like, I couldn't tell, because like, I think it was more like, it was probably just she fucking hates this guy. He represents everything that's reprehensible that's ever happened to her. So she's like, I'm gonna fuck this guy up. Yeah. And then she kind of got lost in it. So, understandable. But Ray's like, yo.
Non-violence.
Nah, that ain't that shit right there.
Yeah.
We next cut to Lila and the Handler discussing I-5 and him being the best assassin that the Bureau's ever produced. And she's like, well, if you think I'm better than him, why don't you make me kill them? And she's like, well, honey, I've got much bigger plans for you. And at this point, you go, this bitch is so manipulative. You're like, she probably doesn't have anything planned for her.
No, yeah, she's just stringing her along like she does everything else.
Well, and what's interesting, too, is that that tells me that the Handler has probably a little bit more of a heart than she lets on to. Like, that's her daughter. She probably doesn't want to put her in harm's way consciously. So there's probably a subconscious level working here where she's like, you know what, I got something for you. Just hold on.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And at the end of this scene, Handler gets Bingo. She stands up and she, Bingo, you old shitbags! I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Boomers. But they were like boomers in the 60s.
Yo. Damn. Yo, they lived through the First World War.
It's like booming boomers.
Booming boomers. Boomers before the boom boom even happened.
But the next scene, we've got Klaus and Ben, going at it again, because that's what they do every time they talk now. It's always an argument. And Klaus is like, Klaus, don't do this. Klaus, do this, but not like that. He's imitating Ben. He's like, you're so controlling. And then Ben loses it and like passes through him.
Mm-hmm.
Had we seen that?
I am mad.
We haven't seen it in season 2.
I felt like we had, or I felt like that would have been something that they like tried before at this point, but I guess not. Like,
I mean, I guess this is only the first episode after the halfway point. So like, We still got plenty of the story to go. It just feels like we're really escalating towards the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just an interesting little scene, and it happens again later. So I'm assuming it'll amount to something eventually because they're pretty good about that.
Yeah.
And the next scene, Ray is concerned with Allison about how she lost control. He's like, "Did you ever do that shit to me?" Mm-hmm. And she's like, "No, I would never." And he's like, "Well, if you did, would I even remember?"
Why does he always ask the questions that he doesn't want to know the answer to? Like, it's just like.
But like,
bro.
honest, like he needs to know. Like, if someone walked into my life and we'd been together for however long, what have they been together, a year?
Yeah,
or so. Is it 1963?
She hasn't been there more than 2 years for sure.
So they've been together however long they've been together, and then he learns that she has this power to control people. Essentially,
yeah.
I mean, I'd be concerned.
Fair, but I get the impression that he won't even believe her if she told the truth.
If she was like, yes.
If she was like,
well, are you saying like no matter what he wasn't going to believe her? It was gonna be, or no matter what, it was going to be like, how can I trust you?
Yeah,
like
exactly. Like that's ultimately what he's asking about, because he's like, he starts with, "Have you done it to me?" And she's like, "No," and then he's like, "Would I even know?" So all he's saying is that inevitably I have to doubt you, which is also,
I heard a rumor that I shouldn't trust you.
Which is, which is also just not trusting them. So it's like, I don't understand how they mend their relationship at this point, because it's like that original sin, you know. Like you can't move past the fact that they were together for so long and he had no clue.
Yeah, but maybe that's why they can get past it, is because they were together for so long.
Maybe.
You never know.
You never know.
Varies couple to couple.
Varies.
I'm going to say that this probably doesn't end well, considering it's in the 60s, and ultimately Allison's probably going to end up making it to a different time period, and she's probably not going to bring Ray along.
Probably not.
Because... And there is...
Doesn't
at the beginning of that scene, at that scene earlier... Oh, shit.
she has
a whole kid.
She has a whole kid.
Doesn't she?
Yeah.
Like in season 1, she has a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
I completely forgot about that. Why have they not mentioned that once?
Not relevant, I guess.
But like, she's not missing her kid at all?
Yeah. I'm telling you, man. She's a weird.
She did have a kid, right? Like, you're not making that up.
Because that's why she broke, or like, yeah, that's why her ex-husband got custody, because she was saying, like, giving rumors to her kid.
Oh, that's right. She gave her rumors, just small shit like, I heard a rumor that you would fall asleep and shit like that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that.
And they're like, that's a no-no.
Okay, well, then that's probably why they haven't brought it up, is because they settled it. I forgot that her husband got full custody. That's pretty much the end of that.
Well, I imagine that she still got to see her, though. Like, I don't... What,
like visits, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know how that shit works.
Yeah,
and that also varies depending on...
I literally don't even remember what the norm for season 1 was.
I hardly remember the through line of season 1.
Yeah.
Like I just remember various moments that I was like, "Fuck yeah, the show was awesome!" Because it always just ups the ante. Like you're always like, "Oh shit, this is fucking cool!"
Mm-hmm.
Just all the time with the show. But moving on, the next scene is Dave showing up to see Klaus, and it's about him being a prophet. He's like, I just wanted to come by and tell you that this is bullshit. Mm-hmm. And Klaus gets very real with him. Like, to a point where he ends up showing him his dog tags.
From the future.
I'd be like, yo, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who you are.
I don't know how the fuck you got these made, but this is weird.
But yeah, I mean, these conversations just keep not going the way I want them to go. that's what I'm noticing about a lot of scenes.
That's the show. Season. Yeah, that's the show right now in general. It's like, well, always I feel like it has had an element.
It's like as though the end of the world isn't enough.
Yeah, right.
They're like, we're gonna give you a bunch of emotional stakes that are fucking hell,
and then resolve those in the way that we want to, and probably not going to give you anything that you expect.
Yeah. And then we learn here that this is the first example of how they've kind of fucked the timeline. Because Dave, after his interaction with Klaus earlier in the diner where he punched him in the face, his uncle immediately took him to enlist, whereas that should have been a couple days down the road. Yeah. So it is a small difference, but I think it was supposed to serve as like a foreshadowing event, like yo, because he even made mention. He goes, well, that's not how that hasn't supposed to happen yet.
Yeah.
So in all his time there, all his time having made a cult,
yeah,
he hasn't noticed anything that would lead him to go, oh shit, the timeline's different than history that I know.
Which only makes sense when you start a cult that never existed.
Yeah. I mean, and they all did their thing to fuck the timeline a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm starting to see is kind of what I think the conclusion of this is going to kind of focus on is like kind of how their own self absorption causes them to be unable to unite as a team, because ultimately, like, for a team of superheroes,
oh, they are the most selfish team of superheroes.
They're the most
ever.
selfish, discombobulated, disjointed,
well, and that is
uncohesive team you've ever met.
Well, and that's a very important part of the first season and the second season so far. They were displaced in time over 3 separate years in the 60s from 2019. They're going to be discombobulated. Then they all just randomly found each other. They're like, yo, we've all lived lives here. Yeah. Like, where we thought, like, this was just going to be it now. Yeah. And now we've got to do this shit again. Uh-huh. And in season 1, they'd been estranged for a while. They hadn't seen each other in a while. They were only reunited by their father's death and stuff.
I'm going to be pissed if it's just Vanya that blows up at the end, because they're like, oh, she found love and she has no memories of the old world. And they tried to take her back and she said no, but they couldn't leave her. Like, that would, oh, my God, I'd be mad.
It can't be Vanya again.
It can't.
And if it is, it has to be the most mind-blowing way ever.
I don't think they focused on her enough anyways. They focused on Diego, Allison,
the main
Klaus
story.
more.
What's crazy is the main storyline is probably the one we don't know anything about. Yeah. It's the one that is still shrouded in mystery. It's the handler one. Yeah. That is what's heading towards the end of the world. Like, that has to be, or else, like, I mean, I guess their dad does have something to do with it, I think, obviously, but
I think so too.
But, like, the handler's interference with it, I think, is going to be there's just no way to fucking know.
There is. This show is very unpredictable.
It very much so is. But the next thing we see is the IKEA mafia just getting a schwitz. When the handler pulls up all naked and offers up Diego, the man who killed their brother, so to say. And the only thing she asks is that they don't hurt Five. You know, kill that guy, but leave the guy with the weird funny socks alone. Yeah. We next see Five and the rest of the gang show up to the dinner at the exact same time at Hargrave's place. And again, Luther got nervous and ripped ass in the elevator. And this was it. This was it,
yeah,
folks.
This is the straw that broke the camel's back.
This is the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, okay, I get nervous gas. I get it. I mean, I don't get it. I didn't mean to say that. Like, I don't get nervous gas, but, like, I get the concept of it.
Are you sure?
I am sure. I get the concept of it, right? Like, yo, like, in an elevator?
In an elevator with your family.
I guess if there's any place that you'd feel comfortable farting in an elevator with, it'd be an elevator full of your family, not an elevator full of strangers.
No, I feel way more comfortable in an elevator full of strangers. It could have been anybody.
Because then they all couldn't be like, what the fuck, dude? Yeah. You could just look around and be like, oh, God, what the fuck? Yeah. Just along with them. Be like, oh, God, one of these fucks farted. Yeah. But
all the while you're like,
but here, definitely Luther.
Yeah, and everybody knew.
And they go sit down, and again, Diego, no more numbers, bullshit. We're Team 0. And, like, I thought, like, earlier in the episode, it looked like he'd gotten it, like that wasn't the move. Yeah. But then here he was like, fuck it, again. We are Team 0. And he again is just like, everyone's like, dude, shut the fuck up. But then Reginald comes in. Guns a fucking blazing. This man just marched right in, sat the fuck down, got straight to business.
Fuck you want? What you want? Who are you? How you know me? Who is you?
And we're your children. And they tell him about their powers, and Diego is the first one to show off. He throws his knife, and it does that weird curving thing in the air and it goes right past Reginald's face and lands in the wall, and he starts writing something down, and Diego's like, what are you writing? He's like, you are 0 for 2, young man. And I was like,
yo, I've never seen someone want to fight so bad. Diego, this man 5 immediately transports over there to be like, oh fuck, because he knew. You could see in Diego's face. He goes, what the? Oh hell no!
This man's pressing me.
Yo, he's like, I ain't no bitch.
Yo, this was it was a fucking funny scene. But then next, Vanya shows off her powers, and she seems to have them really well under control.
Yeah.
Like, she taps that glass and then, shatters the fucking cornucopia sitting in the middle of the table. Like, I don't remember her ever having that much precision. And, everyone there was like, yo, don't do shit right now. Like,
yeah,
you'll end the fucking world.
Of all people, calm it. We don't want to see your
calm the
powers.
fuck down.
We don't want to see your powers.
But then after this, they go around for a little bit, and Diego confronts his dad. He's like, "You are there in a couple days. You're there when the president dies, and we think you have something to do with it."
Mm-hmm.
And after all this, Reginald just lets loose on this guy. And throughout the whole scene, the acting done by this actor was fucking phenomenal, because you could just see him emotionally shrinking.
Yeah.
Just as Reginald's berating him with words. He's just and then he gains his stutter back from when he was a kid, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah, he's regressing.
God, it just broke my heart to watch that scene happen. And when they're all talking about who all's here, they're like, so why would I? He's like, why would I adopt 6 kids? He's like, well, you didn't. You adopted 7. One of them's dead.
Yeah.
And Ben's like, nah, I'm fucking here.
I'm fucking here.
And Klaus is like, shut the fuck up. he's like out loud. He's like, be quiet. And they're all like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? Ben loses it again. Just zaps into Klaus. And for a second, Klaus sticks his arm straight up. He starts seizing, and Diego's probably having a fucking overdose. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
But they're all like, Klaus, this is not the fucking time. They're all pretty laid back about this situation going on. And Ben goes, I'm Ben, through Klaus's body, and then just falls out. They couldn't hold that shit long enough. So here, my theory is that ultimately this is how Ben reunites with the group, is that Klaus will just be able to eventually control that and channel him.
Yeah. But I feel like they've been teasing that since they first let us on to his powers.
Yeah, in season 1.
You were always kind of like, well, at some point Ben and him become one, but god damn, is it taking a long time.
It actually reminds me a lot of a DC storyline in Doom Patrol. It's on HBO Max. There's a character who he's called Mr. Negative or Negative Man or something like that.
He's in the Spider-Man game, right?
I think that's Mr. Negative. Negative Man is DC.
Oh, fuck!
They have all their they have all their reflections of
Mr. Negative and Negative Man.
It's something like that. But this dude has a spirit that lives inside of him, and the entire point of their storyline is figuring out how to live together and in harmony. So I'd imagine that's where Klaus and Ben are headed, because they're showing them butt heads so much, and they couldn't be more different. So they're gonna learn to gleam onto the best parts of each other, and
yeah. And
I like that. I like that arc for especially for Klaus. Klaus needs some help.
Klaus does. He does. Got some issues.
He does indeed. But after Ben loses his shit and falls out of Klaus, that's the last straw for Reginald. He's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And on his way out, Luther goes, look what you did to me! rips off his shirt, and fucking Five's like, oh god. Why?
I know. Everyone's like, why?
And the acting from Five there.
I know.
And this kid is 16 in real life. You pointed that out.
16.
This man is a phenomenal actor. Okay. That part, right? He's so good at acting like he's a 60-year-old trapped in a 16-year-old's body.
Yeah.
That oh god, why? Right there is just perfect.
Yeah.
And In this part, like, immediately, I'm like, Luther, just put your fucking clothes on, man.
Yeah, God. Like, it's over. Oh, and you can see it when he gets up and walks. He's like, wait, I haven't gotten to say anything to them. He's going to forget about me again. And he's starting to, like... But it's really crazy seeing how this dude tormented these kids.
Was terrible.
And, like, he only adopted them. Like, he's not even their real dad.
Well, like, we don't know what their real dad is. He could still have something to do with that.
Yeah, he definitely could. I still think he does. I mean, you don't just get 7 kids with powers. Like, it's not like
by coincidence.
Yeah.
But then they get on the elevator, and Allison points out that was literally the first time Luther has ever stood up to his dad. So I was like, okay, well, that makes more sense. He's like a 30-year-old dude, and that is the first time he's ever stuck up to his dad.
Yeah.
So it probably would be a little bit like, fucking look what you did to me! Ah! I've been holding this back for a very long time, and I'm very uncomfortable right now. But then next we see Diego talking about how right after that he's like, well, fuck, at least he stood up to him. Nobody could fucking stand up for me. I regressed into being a child again, stuttering in front of him, and nobody said shit.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, and like nobody riding for my man's Diego.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It was a good point, and sadly one that hadn't occurred to me at the table.
Yeah.
I was like, I think in that moment they all kind of went back.
Yeah.
Like they were all kind of like, this is just like when we were kids.
Yeah.
So maybe that was probably why. But shit, that was rough.
Yeah.
Diego goes and sees his mom in the car waiting for Reginald, and he's like, here's a picture of your boy. It's gonna be on the grassy knoll where the president gets shot in a couple days. Just thought you should know. We're the only ones that can stop him.
She's like,
we need your help. And I was like, okay, I like this angle too. I like Diego trying to rope in the mother here too. I like that. I'm interested in how it'll affect the timeline and stuff. Like, this stuff is concerning for me.
Very.
Like, their future. Like,
what kind of future?
How do they become? How do they exist anymore after being present in the 60s?
Yeah. Good point.
It's all very confusing. But then we also see Sissy has come to see Vanya, and she's like, "Can we go talk somewhere in private?" And we'll get on that more later. But then we go and see Five and old Reggie sitting down for an adult beverage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you seem to be the most sensible of all of them. And he's like, well, I am the oldest. And Reginald's like, the fuck? Explain.
Yeah, he's like, I'm actually older than you.
And I was like, shit, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty nice conversation, and it ends with Five going like, I'm sorry that I like tormented you so much as a kid, which was interesting because I felt like he tormented them more than anything. But
that could also just be our perception. Our perception is the character, or is the Umbrella Academy, and so like, you know how you like this is how they write such amazing villains. Typically, is that they give them motivation, that they give them sort of justification for why they act the way that they do, or they give you just perspective as to what made them that way and why they are like so driven.
Maybe this fucking shadow government that they've got going on, like, and I seriously doubt it because they're all fucking rich white men in a shadow government. But like, maybe they truly are looking out for the best of humanity. Like, maybe they thought like the move was to kill JFK. Yeah. I doubt it, but like maybe that is the angle somehow.
I doubt it.
Like maybe that is the angle somehow. Like maybe they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I don't think Reginald Hargreaves is a through and through bad person, because even he seems to have an implicit capacity to change, being as he doesn't even understand why he would have adopted these kids in the future.
And then he eventually does.
And then he eventually does, which is for sure true. So it's like something about him is something that is salvageable. It's something that, like, he's not a purely bad guy.
True. But, like, mostly bad guy. And then we cut to Morty's, where Elliot gets a visit, and it's from the IKEA Mafia. And
they go to work.
they really fucked my man's. I've called him Morty every episode because the shop is called Morty's.
I thought his name was Morty, and then they said Elliot, and I was like, wait, I thought
This was the first episode I realized his name wasn't Morty. I was like, oh shit, this guy's name isn't Morty, and I've been referring to him as Morty for 5 episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, fuck it, he's still Morty to me. These guys really fuck Morty up. And then my next note is pulling his teeth. Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. Jesus, all caps. Like, fuck. And then they cut back to him later, and he's even worse.
Yeah,
I thought they were just going to pull his teeth.
I don't even want to think
and, like, that was already fucking bad.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about that. That's gross as shit.
Next, we cut to Sissy and Vanya in a car in the woods, which... I paused it immediately and looked at Tavares. I was like, by the end of the scene, they're fucking. I was like, the car's in the woods.
Yeah.
And it had all these water droplets on it. I was like, it's a very romantic scene. This no doubt goes the way I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And it does go the way I'm thinking.
And it does.
Sissy, it starts in a way that Sissy's like, yo, some of us can't have the life that we want.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that we don't want it. And Vanya's like, yo, fuck that shit. I will protect you from anything that comes. I love you. I will protect Harlan with my life. Run away with me. Let's just go fucking somewhere.
Let's just fucking go.
And, like, you can't argue with her logic. She fucking hates her life. She loves Vanya. Vanya will do anything to protect Harlan and herself. I mean, I'm leaving my husband at that point, too.
I probably would have did it. I'm not going to lie.
So,
I'm like, it's time for a change.
They decide they're going to get the fuck up out of here. And I was like, you know what? I fucking love these two. They're my favorite. I never want this to end. Please cut to black. End of season. They end up together forever.
No, they're going to die. Somebody's going to die.
Somebody is going to die.
Somebody's got to die.
And because as we pan away, we see Carl is watching. Where the fuck did Sissy take her? Like, yo, are you still on your farm?
You dumb as hell. You know that, right? You done fucked up. You done fucked up, and there ain't no going back.
So, how do you think this goes? Where?
Somebody's got to die.
Somebody dies because there has been a suspicious lack of death.
Lack of death. Yes.
In this season, because I remember last season I was like, fucking, like, anybody could die at any time. Like,
yeah.
And I knew that, but like they haven't gone there yet. I mean, they kind of did with Elliot, but like Elliot was extremely minor character, I'd say.
Yeah.
He hosted them, but other than that, it was kind of just like...
I'm not gonna lie, definitely it was like, man, they really like kept him in the fold. Like,
yeah.
Why?
This was why. They were just to fucking kill him eventually.
Yeah. Which is honestly why I feel like they kept Carl in the fold too. Could have been why.
Probably. And I'd be willing to bet Sissy kills Carl.
I feel like, but like just with the power dynamic.
And I get that, but like if I'm a television writer here, okay, and I'm not a television writer, so we'll just take my idea with a grain of salt. So you got Carl, you got Vanya, you got Sissy, right? Carl confronts Vanya. Say that happens. He's like, yo, I know what the fuck's going on, and this is your warning. Then later, he's like, I've had it up to here with you. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Instead of Vanya losing it, wouldn't it be much more compelling to have Vanya keep her composure and Sissy protect Vanya?
But I don't think Vanya can keep her composure. Like, that's kind of the ugly...
No, like, and don't get me wrong, that's... Like, I get that too, but what if that's like a... But they've been indicating that she's had more control over this the whole season.
Yeah.
Like that's why.
But she also doesn't know as much about it. Like, she doesn't.
That's true too.
She doesn't know her own power. Which is why as soon as she does that little trick, during dinner, they're like, "Whoa, buckaroo!"
But she also did that shit a couple episodes ago, where she just like lifted the water willingly, picked up Harlan, walked out, and then let the water fall.
But
like,
that was an intense emotional moment where she was like, "Yo, this guy's gonna die,"
and she had a very succinct control.
She did. I agree, but do you think that control and that focus is going to be the same in the face of love as it is in saving this kid's life?
I don't think it'll be exactly the same. I guess it would be different because there's malcontent with one of them. The other one is purely out of saving a kid's life.
Yeah.
The other one is I'm trying to win your wife.
She definitely doesn't fuck with Carl already. That's already been established.
Oh, big time. She does not fuck with Carl.
Like,
so, I mean, the other option is straight up Vanya kills Carl, Sissy's not into it.
Yeah, Sissy.
And that's if Vanya kills Carl, Sissy's out. Yeah, and that's why I really don't want that to happen.
Nah, yeah. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't particularly feel like Vanya will kill Carl, but I think it would be it would make me the happiest.
Maybe Vanya's about to lose her shit.
Maybe.
And Harlan kills his dad. And then, like, his first words, like, yeah, bitch. Standing over his fucking...
Harlan. Yeah. Harlan with the Uzi.
Fuck yeah. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. I'm excited to find out.
Yeah.
But next we see Luther and Diego come back to Morty's and they're like, yo, anybody home? And then they find Elliot. And boy, oh boy, is he fucking murdered.
Yeah. Is he murdered? He's murdered.
He was murdered. And they drew out in his blood Olga for Olga.
Olga for Olga.
Which I'm assuming in Swedish means like family for family or brother for brother.
Eye for eye.
Eye for an eye. That's probably it.
Yeah, but that's what it is. Even it would fit generally. It could be brother for brother, something like that. But
it wouldn't make sense because it's Elliot.
They're trying to say something along the lines of eye for an eye.
It's almost certainly eye for an eye. You're almost definitely right about that. I'll look it up after this. But fuck, drew that in his blood.
Yeah.
That was the first moment of this season that I was like, okay, this is the Umbrella Academy that I remember.
Yeah,
this is that Vanya slitting Allison's throat Umbrella Academy.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my god, that was crazy.
Oh dude, fucking best.
Holy fuck.
But next we see Five resort to the option he really did not want to take. Goes back to the handler. He's like, all right.
To be clear,
I couldn't get my dad's help. Doesn't look like the team's gonna get shit done.
Yep.
I'll kill the board, but you got to get us back. And that's that.
That's that.
It was a good fucking episode overall, I think. Especially on revisiting those notes. It grew on me a little bit. But certainly the first half was a bit slow. The second half was nice though. Once they hit that dinner.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Things kind of took off from there.
But yeah, that was season 2, episode 6, A Light Supper.
Under the umbrella?
Under the umbrella. Where'd you see yourself?
Where'd
you see yourself in this episode? What reminded you of you?
Hello, my name is Klaus, and I'm an this is a meeting.
That was mine.
Yeah, not gonna, because there were so many scenarios where I feel like I'm, especially in meetings, where I'm just like I'll start to say something, and I'm just like,
oh, can't say that here.
Yes, very much so. That happens quite often.
And it's
quite often.
And more often than not, for me, like, that's sort of a circumstantial thing. It's like I could probably get away with saying that, but like, in front of these people?
In front of these people? Yeah, you're just like, oh shit, I got a little frank here, didn't I? And like, I
went a little 5 here.
I was literally in a like diversity meeting one time. It's like all the administration, like everybody's there, man. And I just started talking about something, man. Like, I was just explaining something, you know, and I was like, I used a couple choice words, you know, like words that you'd probably use in a conversation with a friend more so than a actual meeting.
Fuckity out.
Yeah, but it sucks because then you have to go and correct yourself in real time, and then you're like, oh, this is
fucking.
You're like, there's no way to cover up the fact that I just said I'm an alcoholic. It's like, we got to address that right.
Wrong meeting. But yeah, since you chose that one, I'll go with a different one. I'm gonna go with when Vanya learns that her dad had treated her like shit. And she goes, Jesus, this guy, I have to meet him. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this person's hurt you? Well, I gotta know more about them.
Well, we gotta
see what that's all about.
What it's all about.
That reminds me of Jerry in that episode of Rick and Morty where Beth is like, Jerry, you know when you you comment on someone's YouTube video and they responded and they said like you're a dumbass and you said takes one to know one and then you clicked on refresh the browser all night and you fell asleep crying. I remember it differently. I don't know why, but this kind of reminded me of that. It was like he's like, I can't leave now. They all hate me.
They all hate me.
And that's kind of like, Jesus, this guy, I have to meet him.
Oh my God, Jerry! I just forget about how fucking.
Dude, when season 4 is on HBO Max, I think that might be a move for an episode by episode thing on the podcast.
Oh yes, oh yes,
oh yes. Well, this has been the Penny Bloom Podcast. I'm Colton Robertson, joined by none other than the magnificent Tavares Pennington. As always, peace, love, and bloom.
As always.
And always praise Keanu Reeves.
Always.
Always.
Always.